I married my best friend on a Tuesday morning in a courthouse that smelled like disinfectant. It wasn't supposed to mean anything. It was just paperwork, a favor between friends, a way for me to get the medical benefits I desperately needed. Harry deployed to Afghanistan the next day, and I thought our fake marriage would be nothing more than a legal technicality. I had no idea that over the next 11 months, I would fall completely, hopelessly in love with him through the letters we shared. And I had no idea that when he came home, he would only remember me as his childhood friend. This is a story about love found and lost in the space between words on a page. Before we begin, I have to ask, have you ever fallen in love with someone through their letters or messages? Tell me about it in the comments below, and please subscribe for more emotional stories that will touch your heart. Now, let me take you back to the day my whole world changed. The diagnosis came on a rainy Thursday in March, delivered by a doctor who couldn't look me in the eyes. Systemic lupus erythematosus. The words hung in the air of the examination room like a death sentence. At 26, I was facing a lifetime of expensive treatments, medications that cost more than my rent, and the very real possibility that my immune system would eventually turn my own body against me. The good news, Dr. Tisdale said, finally meeting my gaze, is that with proper treatment, many lupus patients live full, normal lives. The challenge is that the medications and monitoring required are significant. Do you have good health insurance? I almost laughed. Good health insurance? I was a freelance graphic designer living paycheck to paycheck in a studio apartment above a bakery. My insurance was the kind that covered a Band-Aid and a prayer, nothing more. I'll figure something out, I said, but we both knew I was lying. That night, I sat in my tiny kitchen, surrounded by medical pamphlets and insurance forms that might as well have been written in ancient Greek. The numbers were staggering. Even with the cheapest treatment plan, I was looking at thousands of dollars a month. I had maybe $300 in my savings account. I was still sitting there at midnight when Harry knocked on my door. Harry Brennan had been my best friend since we were 7 years old, when his family moved in next door, and he'd helped me rescue a kitten from a storm drain. 20 years later, he was still rescuing me from various disasters, though they'd graduated from stuck cats to stuck printers to stuck jar lids. He was the kind of friend who showed up with pizza when you were sad, who remembered your birthday when your own family forgot, who would drive 3 hours to help you move a couch. He was also leaving for Afghanistan in 6 weeks. "You look terrible," he said, settling into the chair across from me, without invitation. This was Harry. He never waited to be asked in. My apartment had been his second home for 2 decades. "Thanks. You really know how to make a girl feel special." "Mia." His voice was serious now, the teasing gone. "What's wrong? And don't say nothing. You've been weird for weeks." So I told him everything. The diagnosis, the treatment costs, the insurance nightmare. I told him about the fear that kept me awake at night, the terror of watching my body betray me while I couldn't afford to fight back. Harry listened without interrupting, his green eyes never leaving my face. When he finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that changed everything. "Marry me." I stared at him. "What?"
"Marry me," he repeated, as casually as if he'd suggested ordering Chinese food. "Military spouses get full medical coverage. TRICARE. It would cover everything. All your treatments, medications, doctor visits, everything." "Harry, that's insane." "Is it?" He leaned forward, his expression earnest. "Think about it, Mia. We're best friends. We trust each other completely. It's not like we'd have to live together or anything. I'm deploying anyway. It's just paperwork, a legal arrangement between friends." "But what about when you come back? What about when you want to date someone, get married for real?" Harry shrugged. "We'll get divorced. Clean and simple. No harm, no foul." I wanted to say yes immediately, but something held me back. What's in it for you? This is a huge favor, Harry. What if the army finds out it's not real? They won't, he said confidently. And what's in it for me is knowing that my best friend is going to be okay while I'm gone. That I don't have to spend my deployment worrying about whether you can afford your medication. He reached across the table and took my hand. Mia, you've been there for me through everything. When my dad died, when I couldn't decide whether to enlist, when I had that disaster with Marjorie. You've never let me down. Let me do this for you. I looked down at our joined hands. Harry's were calloused from his job at the construction company, strong and warm and completely familiar. The idea of marrying him should have felt strange, but it didn't. It felt like the most natural thing in the world. Okay, I whispered. Okay, let's do it. The wedding was nothing like the one I dreamed about as a little girl. No white dress, no flowers, no family, just Harry and me in the courthouse on a Tuesday morning, wearing our best clothes and trying not to laugh at the absurdity of it all. The justice of the peace was a tired-looking woman who'd clearly performed this ceremony 1,000 times before. Do you, Harold James Brennan, take Mia Catherine Sullivan to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do, Harry said, and his voice was steady and sure. Do you, Mia Catherine Sullivan, take Harold James Brennan to be your lawfully wedded husband? I do, I managed, though my voice cracked slightly. By the power vested in me by the state of Ohio, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Harry and I looked at each other for a moment, both of us suddenly realizing we'd never actually kissed before, not once in 20 years of friendship. He leaned in slowly, giving me time to pull away if I wanted to. I didn't want to. The kiss was soft, brief, and completely chaste, but something about it felt different than I'd expected. There was a tenderness there that surprised me, a gentleness that made my heart skip in a way that had nothing to do with friendship. When we pulled apart, Harry smiled. Well, Mrs. Brennan, how does it feel to be married? Weird, I said, but I was smiling too. Really, really weird. We went to lunch at our favorite diner afterward, the same place we'd been going since high school. Nothing had changed, and everything had changed. I kept looking down at the simple gold band on my finger. Harry had insisted on rings, saying it would make the marriage look more legitimate, and trying to process the fact that I was married to Harry. My Harry. No regrets? He asked as we shared a piece of apple pie. No regrets, I said. You? None. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. We're going to be okay, Mia. Both of us. The next morning, I drove him to the airport. We'd done this before. Harry had been in the National Guard for 3 years. But this felt different. This time, he was going to a war zone. This time, I was his wife. Take care of yourself, I said, as we stood at the security checkpoint. Write to me, okay? I want to know you're safe. I will, he promised. And you take care of yourself, too. Get the treatment you need. Don't try to be tough about it. He hugged me then, the kind of long, tight hug we'd shared 100 times before. But this time, when he pulled back, he kissed my forehead. See you in a year, Mrs. Brennan. See you in a year, Mr. Brennan. I watched him disappear through security, and for the first time since we'd made this crazy plan, I wondered what I'd gotten myself into. The first letter arrived 3 weeks after Harry left. I found it in my mailbox on a Thursday evening, my name written in Harry's familiar scrawl across the front of a military-issued envelope. I carried it upstairs to my apartment and sat on my couch, staring at it for a full 5 minutes before I worked up the courage to open it. Dear Mia, well, I made it to Afghanistan in one piece, which is more than I can say for my luggage. Apparently, the Army thinks I can survive on 2 pairs of socks and a toothbrush for the next year. Good thing I packed extra in my carry-on. The base is not exactly what I expected. It's bigger than I thought it would be, but also more isolated. We're in the middle of nowhere,
surrounded by mountains that are actually pretty beautiful when they're not hiding people who want to shoot at us. The food is terrible, the heat is unbearable, and I miss real coffee more than I thought possible. But enough about me. How are you doing? Have you started the treatment yet? I know you hate doctors, but please don't put it off. I need to know you're taking care of yourself. I know this is weird, writing to my wife. It feels strange to say that word, but also kind of nice. I don't know. Maybe I'm just lonely. Write me back, okay? I want to hear about everything. Your work, your treatment, what you had for breakfast. Anything that reminds me there's a normal world out there. Your friend and husband, Harry. P.S. I'm enclosing a picture of my bunk. As you can see, I've made it very homey. That's your face taped to the wall next to my bed, by the way. I figured if anyone asks, I should probably have a picture of my wife. I looked at the photo he'd included, a small, cramped space with a narrow bed and a few personal items. And there, taped to the wall, was my senior picture from high school, the one where I was laughing at something off camera. Seeing my face in that foreign, military environment made everything feel suddenly real. I wrote him back that same night. Dear Harry, your bunk looks very cozy. I'm honored to be your wall decoration, though I have to say, that picture is from high school. I look much more sophisticated now. That's a lie. I'm currently wearing pajama pants with cartoon cats on them. I started the treatment last week. You were right, I hate doctors. But Dr. Tisdale is actually pretty nice, and the medication is already helping. I can't believe how much better I feel. I can't believe I can afford to feel better. Thank you, Harry. I know you said not to thank you, but I'm going to anyway. You saved my life. Work is going well. I got a new client, a local restaurant that wants me to redesign their menu. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills. Well, it pays some of the bills. The medical bills are still terrifying, but at least now there's someone else's problem. I miss you. I know that's probably weird to say, but it's true. The apartment feels too quiet without you barging in at random hours. Who's going to eat all my leftover pizza now? Stay safe over there, and write me back soon. I want to hear more about those beautiful mountains and terrible food. Your friend. And wife. Mia. P.S. I'm enclosing a picture of me with my new wedding ring. I figured if you're going to have a picture of your wife, it should at least be a recent one. And so it began. What started as simple updates between friends slowly evolved into something deeper, more intimate. Harry wrote about the fear he felt during patrols, the friends he was making, the way the desert looked at sunset. I wrote about my treatment, my work, the small details of my daily life that suddenly seemed important when I was sharing them with someone half a world away. By the third month, our letters had taken on a different tone. Dear Mia, I had a close call yesterday. I can't give you details, but I wanted you to know I'm okay. More than okay, actually. I'm alive, and I'm grateful for it in a way I've never been before. Being here, facing the possibility that I might not make it home, has made me think about a lot of things. About what matters. About what I want my life to look like when I get back. I think about you a lot, more than I probably should. I think about our conversations, our friendship, the way you laugh when you think something is really funny. I think about that kiss at the courthouse and how it felt different than I expected. Is it weird that I'm starting to look forward to coming home to you? Not just to Ohio, but to you, specifically. I know this marriage is supposed to be fake, but sometimes it doesn't feel fake. Sometimes it feels like the most real thing in my life. I hope that doesn't make you uncomfortable. I hope I'm not ruining our friendship by saying this, but I needed to tell you. I love you, Mia. Not just as a friend. I think I'm in love with you. Harry. I read that letter 17 times before I worked up the courage to respond. My hands were shaking as I wrote back. Dear Harry, you're not ruining anything. You're not making me uncomfortable. You're making me happy in a way I didn't know was possible. I love you too. I think I've been falling in love with you through these letters, through getting to know this version of you that I never saw before. You've always been my best friend, but now you're something more, something I don't have words for. I dream about you coming home, not just safe, but coming home to me, really coming home to me, as more than friends. Is that crazy? Are we crazy for falling in love in this situation? I don't care if we are. I love you, Harry Brennan. I love your courage, your kindness, the way you see beauty in a desert sunset. I love the man you've become over there, and I love the man you've always been. Come home to me, please. Come home safe and come home to me. All my love, Mia.
The letters that followed were love letters in the truest sense. We wrote about our future, about the life we wanted to build together when he came home. We wrote about the wedding we'd have, a real one this time, with flowers and family and all the things we'd skipped the first time around. We wrote about children, about growing old together, about all the dreams we'd never dared to voice before. I fell asleep every night clutching his latest letter, and I woke up every morning counting the days until he'd be home. The call came on a Tuesday in February, 11 months after Harry had deployed. I was at my computer, working on a logo design when my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but something about it made my blood run cold. "Is this Mrs. Mia Brennan?" "Yes," I said, though my voice came out as barely a whisper. "Ma'am, this is Captain Rodriguez from Walter Reed Medical Center. I'm calling about your husband, Sergeant Harold Brennan." The world tilted sideways. Is he alive?" "Yes, ma'am, he's alive. But he's been seriously injured. He was caught in an IED explosion 3 days ago. He's being transferred to Walter Reed for treatment, and he should arrive tomorrow morning." "What kind of injuries?" I managed to ask. "Traumatic brain injury, ma'am. He's conscious and stable, but there may be some complications. We'll know more when he arrives." I was on a plane to Washington, D.C. that night, clutching a folder full of Harry's letters and wearing the wedding ring that had become as natural as breathing. I'd called his mother, his sister, everyone who needed to know. But I was his wife. I was his emergency contact. I was the one they'd called first. Walter Reed Medical Center was a maze of sterile corridors and worried families. I found Harry's room on the 3rd floor, and I stood outside the door for a full 5 minutes, trying to prepare myself for what I might see. Nothing could have prepared me. Harry was awake, sitting up in bed, but he looked smaller somehow. Fragile. There were bandages around his head, and his left arm was in a sling. But his eyes were open, and when he saw me, he smiled. "Mia," he said, and his voice was exactly the same as always. "Hey, you came." "Of course I came," I said, rushing to his bedside. "How are you feeling? Are you in pain?" "I'm okay," he said, but I could see the confusion in his eyes. "The doctor said you were coming. They said you're my wife?" My heart stopped. "Harry, yes, we got married before you deployed. Remember?" He frowned, concentrating. "Right, the fake marriage thing, for your medical insurance." He nodded slowly. "I remember that. We went to the courthouse, right? You wore that blue dress." "Yes," I said, relief flooding through me. "You remember?" "Of course I remember. You're my best friend, Mia. I'd never forget you." He squeezed my hand, and his touch was exactly the same as always. Warm, familiar, comforting. "Thank you for coming all this way. I know this fake marriage thing is a hassle for you." The words hit me like a physical blow. Fake marriage thing? A hassle. "Harry," I said carefully, "what's the last thing you remember before the explosion?" He was quiet for a moment, his brow furrowed in concentration. "I remember arriving at the base, getting settled in, writing you that first letter about my terrible bunk and worse food." He smiled at the memory. "Why, did I miss something important?"
11 months. He'd lost 11 months of memories, 11 months of letters, of falling in love, of planning our future together. To him, I was still just his childhood friend who'd agreed to a marriage of convenience. No, I whispered, my heart breaking into 1,000 pieces. You didn't miss anything important. The breaking point came 6 weeks after he'd returned home. We were sitting in his living room, watching a movie we'd seen a dozen times before, when Harry's phone buzzed with a text message. "Oh, that's Marjorie," he said, glancing at the screen. "Remember Marjorie? She heard I was back and wants to get coffee sometime." Marjorie. His ex-girlfriend, the one he'd dated briefly before his deployment, the one he'd mentioned in his very first letter, calling the relationship a disaster. "That's nice," I managed to say. "Yeah, she's sweet. I was thinking I might say yes. I mean, now that I'm back and getting my life together, maybe it's time to start dating again." He looked at me with a smile. "What do you think? Should I go for it?" The question hit me like a punch to the stomach. He was asking for my advice about dating another woman, as his friend, as his fake wife who meant nothing to him. "I think," I said slowly, "that you should do whatever makes you happy." "You're right," he said, already typing a response. "Life's too short, right? I should put myself out there." I excused myself and went to the bathroom, where I sat on the edge of the bathtub and cried as quietly as I could. This was my reality now. I was married to a man who wanted to date other women, who saw our marriage as nothing more than a legal technicality. I was in love with someone who would never love me back, because the version of him that had loved me was gone forever. That night, I went home to my apartment and pulled out the shoebox of letters. I spread them across my bed, dozens of them, chronicling our journey from friends to lovers. I read them all again, remembering the joy I'd felt receiving each one, the hope they'd given me for our future. In his last letter, written just days before the explosion, Harry had written about the ring he wanted to buy me when he got home, a real engagement ring to replace the simple band we'd chosen for our courthouse wedding. He'd described it in detail, a vintage setting with a small diamond, something classic and timeless. He'd written, "I can't wait to get down on one knee and propose to you properly. I know we're already married, but I want to do it right this time. I want to tell you I love you while I'm looking into your eyes, not from half a world away. I want to start our real life together." I held that letter against my chest and sobbed. Our real life together. The life that would never happen now. The next morning, I made a decision. I couldn't keep living in this limbo, loving a ghost, waiting for a miracle that might never come. I had to let go of the man who had loved me in those letters and learn to be friends with the man who would come home. I was putting the letters back in the shoebox when I heard a knock at my door. I wiped my eyes and went to answer it, expecting to see my neighbor or maybe a delivery person. Instead, I found Harry standing in my hallway, holding a cup of coffee and looking confused. "Hey," he said, "I brought you coffee. That vanilla latte thing you like." "Thank you," I said, accepting the cup. "What's the occasion?" "I don't know," he said, and he genuinely looked puzzled. "I woke up this morning and I had this overwhelming urge to bring you coffee, like it was something I used to do all the time, but I can't remember ever bringing you coffee before." My heart skipped. "You can't?" "No, but it felt familiar. Important, somehow." He shook his head. "The doctors said I might have flashes of memory, little pieces that don't quite fit together. Maybe that's what this is." I invited him in, and we sat at my kitchen table drinking coffee. Harry kept looking around my apartment as if he was seeing it for the first time. "This place feels different," he said finally. "Different how?" "I don't know, more lived in, I guess. Like I've spent a lot of time here recently." He frowned. "But I remember your apartment. I've been coming here for years." Maybe you're just seeing it with fresh eyes, I suggested, though my pulse was racing. Maybe. He was quiet for a moment, then looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. Mia, can I ask you something? Of course. When I was in the hospital, you seemed, I don't know, sad. Not just worried about me, but genuinely heartbroken. And you've been taking care of me like I'm more than just your friend. Like I'm... He trailed off, shaking his head. Never mind. It's probably just the head injury making me paranoid. Like you're what? I asked softly. Like I'm someone you love, he said quietly. Not just as a friend, as something more. The words hung in the air between us. I could lie, deflect, change the subject. Or I could tell him the truth and risk everything. Harry, I think you hit your head a little too hard. He stared at me for a long moment, and then laughed. I knew it was nothing. I turned to open the fridge door. I was not searching anything there. I was hiding my face, my freaking face that I knew couldn't lie anymore. You know I missed you, old Mia. His voice was more dictating than it should have been. Oh, what are these? That's when I realized he was heading to the bathroom, my sweet bathroom. I ran to my room. Harry, sorry, I was noisy, Mia. I just saw my name written on the shoebox. His hands were trembling as he read the letter silently, then picked up another and another. I watched his face as he read, looking for any sign of recognition, any spark of memory. But there was nothing. Just confusion and something that might have been sadness. I wrote these? He asked finally. Every word, I sighed. And you wrote back. I nodded. I think they got lost in the middle of the desert when you were sent back here. Harry spent the next hour reading his letters, tracing the evolution of our relationship from friendship to love. When he finished, he set the letters down and looked at me with eyes full of pain. I can't remember any of this, he said. I can't remember writing these words, feeling these things. I know, I whispered. But reading them, it's like reading about someone else's life. Someone who looks like me, sounds like me, but isn't me. He picked up one of his letters, the one where he'd first told me he loved me. This person, this version of me who wrote these letters, he was in love. He had something beautiful. You had something beautiful, I corrected. We had something beautiful. No, Harry said sadly. He had something beautiful. I'm just the man who came home in his place. We sat in silence for a while, the weight of our loss settling between us. Finally, Harry spoke again. I'm sorry, Mia. I'm so sorry I can't be the man who wrote you these letters. It's not your fault. None of this is your fault. But I know that doesn't make it hurt less. He reached across the table and took my hand. What do we do now? How do we move forward from this? It was the question I'd been dreading, the one I didn't have an answer to. How do you love someone who can't remember loving you back? How do you build a future on a foundation of forgotten memories? I don't know, I admitted. I honestly don't know. Harry was quiet for a long moment, still holding my hand. When he spoke again, his voice was thoughtful, careful. What if, he said slowly, we started over? Not as the people we were in these letters, but as the people we are now. What if we gave ourselves a chance to fall in love again? From the beginning. I looked at him in surprise. What are you saying? I'm saying that even though I can't remember falling in love with you, I can see why I did. You're beautiful, Mia. You're kind and funny and brave. You are an incredible woman. Harry, I'm not the same man who wrote you those letters. The explosion changed me, took away pieces of who I was. But maybe that's not entirely a bad thing. Maybe it's a chance to become someone new, someone better. What are you asking me? I'm asking if you'd be willing to start over with me, to let me get to know you again, and let you get to know this version of me. I can't promise I'll fall in love with you the same way I did before, but I can promise I'll try. I can promise I'll be open to the possibility. I stared at him, hardly daring to hope. You want to try to fall in love with me again? I felt the tears running through my cheeks. You want to try to fall in love with me, yes, he said. That's kind of humiliating, you know? I don't want you to try to fall in love with me. I don't want it to be a task you need to check. Like, oh, Mia's expecting me to fall in love with her. I need to do it the faster way possible. That's crazy, Harry. He felt silent. Okay, he said, his voice shaky. Okay. I know it's not fair, but there's a part of me that was hoping you'd say yes. There's a part of me that asked you to marry me, not knowing it consciously, but hoping deep down that it was not just a fake marriage. What do you mean? Harry smiled, and for the first time since he'd come home, it reached his eyes. Mia, you have fallen for me over this last year. Through those letters, you have developed the feeling. You had time to process. I didn't. I mean, the new me didn't. But I know there's something weird that happens inside of me when I look at you. Or worse, there is something weird that happens inside of me when I can't look at you, can't be near you. A longing, a strange feeling. You think you have a crush on me? We laughed. Yeah, I think I've always had a crush on you. We stayed quiet for a minute, but it was not an awkward silence. Would you like to go on a date with me? A real one? I'd love to. And I meant it. Our first date was coffee at the same diner where we'd celebrated our courthouse wedding. But this time, it was different. This time, Harry looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time, asking questions about my life, my dreams, my fears. He told me about his recovery, his plans for the future, the man he wanted to become. It was strange, dating my own husband, falling in love with someone I was already in love with. But it was wonderful. This Harry was different from the one in the letters, more cautious perhaps, marked by his experiences in ways the old Harry hadn't been. But he was also more present, more intentional about the connections he made. We took it slow. We went on dates, we talked for hours, we learned each other all over again. And gradually, carefully, we began to build something new. 3 weeks after our first date, Harry kissed me. Really kissed me, not the chaste peck we'd shared at our courthouse wedding. We were sitting on my couch, watching a movie, when he turned to me and said, I think I'm falling in love with you, Mia. Think? I teased. No, he corrected, and then his lips were on mine, and it was everything I'd dreamed it would be.
6 months later, he proposed, not with the vintage ring he'd described in his letters, but with something he'd chosen himself, a simple, elegant band with 3 small diamonds. I know we're already married, he said, down on one knee in my tiny kitchen, but I want to do this right. I want to choose you, Mia, not because of a favor between friends, not because of medical insurance, but because I love you, because I want to spend my life with you. Yes, I said through my tears. Yes, of course. Yes. We had our real wedding 6 months after that, in the same church where Harry's parents had been married. It was small and simple and perfect. Harry's memory never returned. The doctor said it probably never would. But it didn't matter anymore. We'd built something new, something that belonged entirely to us. As I walked down the aisle toward him, wearing the white dress I'd dreamed of as a little girl, I thought about the journey that had brought us here, the fake marriage that had become real, the love found and lost and found again, the letters that had changed everything. Harry was waiting for me at the altar, handsome in his dress uniform, his eyes bright with tears. When I reached him, he took my hands and whispered, "You look beautiful, Mrs. Brennan." "I love you, Mr. Brennan," I whispered back. The ceremony was everything our courthouse wedding hadn't been. We exchanged vows we'd written ourselves, promising to love each other through whatever came next. We exchanged rings, real ones this time, chosen together, symbols of the love we'd built from the ashes of what we'd lost. When the minister pronounced us husband and wife, Harry kissed me like he meant it, like he'd been waiting his whole life for this moment. And maybe he had been. Maybe we both had been. At the reception, Harry's best man, his army buddy Mike, gave a speech that made everyone cry. I've known Harry for 5 years, and I've never seen him as happy as he is with Mia. They've been through more in the past 2 years than most couples face in a lifetime. They've proven that love isn't just about remembering the past. It's about choosing each other every single day, building a future together one moment at a time. Later that night, as we slow danced to our wedding song, Harry pulled me close and spoke softly in my ear. I have something for you. Another surprise? You've already given me everything I could ever want. He smiled and pulled a folded piece of paper from his jacket pocket. I must have written this before I deployed, but I never sent it. I unfolded the paper with trembling hands. It was a letter, written in Harry's familiar handwriting, but the paper was older, more worn than the others. Dear future Mia, I'm writing this the night before I leave for Afghanistan. I don't know what the next year will bring, or what kind of man I'll be when I come home, but I want you to know something, just in case I forget to tell you later. You are the best person I know. You're brave and kind and funny, and you make everything better just by being in it. I'm honored to be your friend, and I'm honored to be your husband, even if it's just pretend. I hope that when I come home, we'll still be friends. I hope that this crazy plan of ours works out and that you get the treatment you need. I hope that you find someone who loves you the way you deserve to be loved. And if I'm being completely honest, I hope that someone is me. Forever yours, Harry. I looked up at him through my tears. You wrote this before you left? Apparently, I found it in my old journal, tucked between the pages. I must have been planning to send it to you, but I never did.
Harry, this means the brain injury didn't take away my love for you, Mia. It just took away my memory of finally being brave enough to tell you. I kissed him then, right there on the dance floor, surrounded by our family and friends. I kissed him like he was my whole world, because he was. I love you, I whispered against his lips. I love all of you. The man who wrote me letters, the man who came home, the man you are now. I love every version of you. And I love you, he said. And I'll choose to fall in love with you again every day for the rest of our lives. We danced until the last song played, holding each other close, surrounded by the people who loved us. And when we finally went home to the house we'd bought together, our first real home as a married couple, I carefully placed all of Harry's letters in a memory box, along with the letter he'd never sent. They were our history, the foundation of everything we'd built, but they weren't our future. Our future was the man sleeping beside me, the life we were creating together, the love we chose every single day. Sometimes love isn't about remembering. Sometimes it's about beginning again, about having the courage to open your heart to someone new, even when that someone is the person you've loved all along. Harry never got his memories back, but we made new ones, better ones, richer ones, ones that belonged entirely to us. We had children, we grew old together, we built a life that was more beautiful than anything we could have imagined in those letters. And every year on our anniversary, I would read him one of his old letters, and he would listen like he was hearing it for the first time. And every year, I would fall in love with the man he had become, and he would fall in love with the woman who had loved him through everything. Our love story wasn't the one we'd planned. It was better. It was real. It was ours. An absolutely beautiful and heartbreaking story about love that transcends memory and the courage to begin again. What do you think of Mia's decision to start over instead of trying to force Harry to remember their past? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you were moved by this incredible love story, please show your support by hitting that like button and be sure to subscribe for more emotional and uplifting stories. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.